half-off deals from foxbangor.com.
Come to the Beer Garden in Skowhegan, where classic German dishes meet Maine flavor. A place for friends and family to unwind and enjoy live music along the Kennebec with 16 taps, wine, and cocktails. There's something for everyone. The Beer Garden. Eat well, drink well, and gather often.
There's a limited supply available. It's on sale right now. Save with half-off deals from foxbangor.com.
Keep your feet on the ground, they said. So many people have told you you can't. They say you don't listen. So you don't listen to them. You rise to your moment. It feels like every idea is crystal clear. It feels like every line, every angle is perfect. It feels like you are at the top of your game with high-speed, reliable, no-stress Fidium fiber internet.
It feels like Fidium.
Bring your new kitchen to life with help from the Kitchen, Bath, and Flooring Division by Hammond Lumber Company. Bring in your ideas or get inspired by Hammond's extensive showroom displays. Your Hammond sales rep will help you create a materials list and cost estimate, and Hammond's designers will help you visualize your space before the work begins. And Hammond delivers from 34 locations across Maine and New Hampshire. Your new kitchen begins when you bring your vision to Hammond Lumber Company, your building project partner.
At Maine's #1 Kia dealer, Darling's Kia, you can't miss in 2026. Drive a brand new all-wheel drive Sportage for only $299 a month, or buy a new Kia SUV for under $20,000. Plus, every new Kia comes with our 10-year or 100,000-mile warranty. The best in the business. You can't miss this and more at Darling's Kia. The best cars, the best prices, and the best warranty. You'll do better at Darling's.
Now, your primetime local news leader. Fox 22 News at 10.
An attack launched by the United States and Israel kills more than 200 people in Iran. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday night. For Fox 22 News at 10, I'm Doug Banks. Israeli officials say Iran's supreme leader is also dead. Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy leads us off tonight.
It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere.
This is the mission.
We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground.
This is the reason.
They attempted to rebuild their nuclear program.
Inside a secure room at Mar-a-Lago, CIA Director John Ratcliffe ran President Trump through intel about Operation Epic Fury, and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Dan Raisin Kane, kept a tight-knit group of trusted Trump advisors up to speed, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio and White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. Vice President Vance remained in the White House Situation Room, flanked by DNI Tulsi Gabbard and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Just hours before war broke out, the president gave no hints military action was imminent, visiting a Corpus Christi, Texas Whataburger.
I'm going to get some stuff for Air Force One, and I'm going to get the hell out of here.
According to Reuters, ahead of Epic Fury, briefers described the operation to the president as a high-risk, high-reward scenario. But 10 hours later,
a short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
Concerned about Iran or terrorist proxies retaliating, the Secret Service says the public may notice an increased law enforcement and federal presence around U.S. Secret Service protected sites. Attorney General Pam Bondi has announced the FBI and our other Department of Justice components are vigilantly monitoring any and all threats to Americans. The war may not end anytime soon, something President Trump knew well when he gave the order to strike.
Is there a risk that strike could turn into a long, drawn-out conflict in the Middle East?
I guess you could say there's always a risk.
Now the president is saying heavy and pinpoint bombing will continue uninterrupted throughout the week, or as long as it takes for the United States to achieve their goal of peace in the Middle East. White House officials have now given us a lid, which means we don't expect to see President Trump on camera again tonight. Probably won't see him until he comes back here to the White House tomorrow. At the White House, Peter Doocy, Fox News.
Maine's elected officials are also reacting to the joint attack by the United States and Israel against Iran. Governor Janet Mills said in part, quote, Iran must not be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, but the president's unilateral actions put us at risk, end quote. U.S. Senator Angus King said in part, quote, I hope for the best, especially for our troops who may be placed in harm's way. but fear that this precipitous action may have unnecessarily put them at risk without sufficient consideration of the significant possibility of a prolonged and destructive conflict, end quote. Senator Susan Collins said in part, quote, the Iranians' regime pursuit of nuclear weapons, ballistic missile development, and support for terrorist proxies pose serious threats to America's national security and that of our allies, as well as the stability in the Middle East, end quote. U.S. Representative Jared Golden said in part, quote, it's regrettable that negotiations to halt Iran's nuclear program have stalled. Having made the decision to use his Article 2 powers to initiate these strikes, President Trump is now required by the War Powers Act to consult with Congress within 48 hours, end quote. U.S. Representative Shelley Pingree says this latest action puts global stability at risk.
This president came into office saying, I will end the forever wars. Those were misguided. You won't see that from me anymore. And he's been going in the opposite direction. We've gotten no briefing, no rationale, no information about this.
Political candidates here in Maine also reacting. 2nd District candidate Matt Dunlap said in part, quote, this is an illegal war that no one wants that was started by a president who is out of control. Donald Trump promised the American people he'd keep us out of wars. He lied, end quote. U.S. House candidate Jordan Wood said in part, quote, President Trump's reckless and lawless strike on Iran is unconstitutional and a massive step towards another war that the American people do not want or support, end quote. And U.S. Senate candidate Graham Plattner said in part, quote, this behavior makes us a pariah on the international stage, but we have to remember that this behavior is because we've acted like this in the past, end quote. Now, each of their full statements can be found on our website, foxbangor.com. It'll be updated as more statements are received. To southern Maine now, as Israel joins the United States in war against Iran. Supporters of Palestine gathered today at the First Parish Congregational Church of Gorham to remind everyone of the more than 73,000 Palestinians killed by Israel. This conference was supposed to be held at the University of Southern Maine, but the president and trustees rescinded its agreement 6 days ago after organized opposition surfaced. Today, local supporters of Palestine said they will not be silenced about the ongoing genocide of Palestinians at the hands of Israel.
We are seeing the severe consequences of this failure after 2.5 years of horrific genocide and continuing ethnic cleansing for Palestinians, but also for the rest of the world. We are discovering just how callous and brutal the intertwining systems of political and economic power are.
He says the United States and several European countries continue to provide financial and military support for Israel while blocking efforts to stop the killings. In other news, Rockland police say a student has been charged in connection with the investigation of a school threat in which a firearm and ammunition was found in a student's car. According to an RSU 13 Facebook post, there was an increased police presence at Oceanside High School on Friday due to, quote, serious and concerning statements made by a student involving school safety. Rockland police discovered a firearm and ammunition inside a student's vehicle. Although there was no threat of a shooting made by the student, given the seriousness of the violation and the totality of the circumstances, Rockland police says the student was charged with possession of a firearm on school property. In other news, Friday marked 43 years since the beginning of a mystery in Down East Maine that is now one of the state's oldest cold cases. On the evening of February 27, 1983, 27-year-old Kenneth Kramer got into a vehicle with an unknown person and never returned home. His body was found the next day in Cherryfield on the Black Woods Road around a 12.5-mile stretch of Route 182. He was also found with multiple shotgun wounds. Kramer was a veteran of the Coast Guard and U.S. Army and a member of the American Legion Post No. 8 in Cherryfield. He was working as a merchant marine and played in a local band. According to our previous coverage, some locals believed it was a drug deal gone bad. Authorities also said he occasionally functioned as an informant for them. He left behind a widow and a young daughter. In January, 2 Maine Department of Transportation employees were struck by a vehicle and killed while doing their job. Today, a celebration of lives. Our Callie Warren has the story.
This is the nightmare that most commissioners, most entities that work in the right-of-way worry about day to day.
James Brown and Dwayne Campbell died while doing one of the many things those close to them say they loved, working to keep Mainers safe on the roadways.
Dwayne and Jimmy's friends, family, and co-workers say they were both good friends and good guys. Always out on the roads, even on the coldest winter or the hottest summer days. If there was work to be done, their vehicles were at the shed.
Killed in a January crash inside an interstate construction zone in Waterville, their colleagues and loved ones made sure their memory stays alive. In their memorial service Saturday, a sea of Maine DOT branded vests, exactly like the ones they wore every day, showed proof of camaraderie and community.
There, that feels better. I'm home now. Today is about honoring and recognizing what Dwayne and Jimmy did for you, your families, your neighbors, and every day when they put one of these on and walked out of the Fairfield camp.
Before their memorial service, a convoy rolled out of the Maine DOT Training Center in Fairfield. Work vehicles from Calais to Vermont and everywhere in between traveled to Augusta, their lights on, their license plates bearing Brown and Campbell's names.
No sign, barrier system, attenuator truck can provide the same level of safety that just a prudent driver can.
The Maine DOT reminds all drivers to be cautious, especially of those working on or in roadways.
Grief is the price of love, and the depth of our grief today speaks to the depth of our love for Dwayne and Jimmy.
Callie Warren reporting for ABC 7 and Fox 22 News.
All right, folks, let's turn things over to Chase Ropanak, who's in now with a first look at our forecast.
Thank you very much. You saw highs today reaching to the low to mid 40s all across the state. You saw 42 here in town, 41 in Bar Harbor, 46 down in the southwest near Sanford for today, and 44 degrees stretching all the way up to Presque Isle as well. So warm temperatures all across the state with our fair share of rain and snow out there for today with that cold front passing by this afternoon. That is now done with, but we do have a chance for some light snow and flurries to be left over towards the early morning hours, 6 to 6:30 in the morning, as we can see that passing through the central portions of the state. And then going into the afternoon, most of that snow will hang around our central and eastern coastline. We'll have some partly cloudy skies filling in for the rest of your Sunday afternoon. So for tonight, staying cloudy out there. The wind a little breezy at times, otherwise lows hanging out near 20 degrees.
Good to know, Chase. Thank you for that report. We'll see you later on the broadcast. Folks, after the break here on Fox 22 News at 10, we'll be going to the State House, where a portrait of former U.S. Senator George Mitchell was taken down. And a bill is getting pushback from one of the state's largest health systems. Those stories and more local news right after the break.
We are the Dillos. We are from Northern Kentucky. Being out in a rural area, coverage is pretty hit and miss with other carriers, so switching to T-Mobile solved a lot of problems that we had.
I'm able to use T-Satellite now. We've got coverage no matter where we're at.
America's best network meets off-the-grid satellite coverage with T-Satellite. And now switch to T-Mobile and get free phones for $0 down. Plus 4 lines for only $25 per month per line.
Better service, better price, win-win.
Fires, floods, burst pipes. Disasters happen, but the mess they leave behind doesn't have to last. For 40 years, Bouchard Cleaning and Restoration has been there to help Mainers get back to the closest to normal as they can. When your property is at its worst, Bouchard Cleaning and Restoration is at their best, and they have been for 4 decades. Put your trust in the Bouchard team. Bouchard Cleaning and Restoration. You keep the memories, we'll handle the rest.
John Brown first opened his own appliance store in Ellsworth in 1976. With his gift of storytelling, a strong work ethic, and a philosophy of putting others first, John and his wife and children saw the business prosper and grow. Today's 3rd and 4th generation of family and their entire team continue to follow the example set by their grandparents and parents. Brown Appliance and Mattress, High Street, Ellsworth, a family tradition of quality, value, and customer service that always puts you first.
Rowell's Garage has been serving customers in the greater Dover-Foxcroft region since 1946. Our goal is not just selling you a vehicle, but also giving you quality service to maintain your vehicle at peak performance. Browse our inventory online or in person. Whether it's a car, truck, or SUV, we can put you in the vehicle that is right for you. Sales, service, and parts. Rowell's Garage, doing business the right way every day.
Start your day with Good Morning Maine. Weekday mornings starting at 6 on Fox 22.
It's an old-fashioned game that's growing in popularity.
It's just something that the community has always done. It's kind of the older crowd, but the younger crowd's actually getting drawn into it.
So grab your bingo dauber and come along as we participate in the Carmel Snowmobile Club's Bingo Night. Monday on Fox 22 News at 10.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. A bill that aims to make healthcare more affordable for Mainers is getting pushback from one of the state's largest health systems. Yesterday I spoke with both sides of the issue. Here are those details.
It's intended to be impactful.
Lawmakers are pushing a piece of legislation they say aims to lower health insurance costs and reduce healthcare barriers. LD 2196 puts a cap on hospital charges to no more than 200% of the Medicare rate for the same service. The bill was crafted by the independent agency Maine Office of Affordable Health Care and is sponsored by Westbrook Representative Drew Katine.
The essence of this bill is that if we really want to lower costs, we have to come up with solutions that actually lower costs.
But Northern Light Health strongly opposes the bill. They say if passed, it would reduce commercial insurance payments to hospitals statewide by $1 billion a year, making Maine's healthcare system even more fragile.
We tend to be poorer. We tend to be more in debt, and we tend to have older hospitals than states across the country. And we are also preparing for a really uncertain future as the impact of HR 1, which is the One Big Beautiful Bill Act law, and the impact that that will have on the state's main care coverage and reduced insurance coverage in the state of Maine.
Northern Light Health is coming off a year where it shut down a major hospital in Waterville, and an audit reportedly found they lost $15 million last year. But even if these setbacks never happened, its position on LD 2196 would remain the same because
it will effectively deconstruct the infrastructure we have.
Ultimately, the current system is not sustainable for hospitals, that hospitals will not survive if people can't afford to use their services.
We absolutely understand and acknowledge that healthcare affordability is a challenge for the people of Maine. To effectively address that, you have to have the entire spectrum of the sources of the challenge part of the discussion.
Doug Banks reporting for ABC 7 and Fox 22 News.
And that bill will be heard before the Health and Human Services Committee this coming Thursday. In other news, on Friday, the official portrait of former U.S. Senator George Mitchell was removed from the walls of the Maine State House. The executive director of the legislature says legislative officers had received inquiries about Mitchell's portrait being hung in the Capitol. Maine Republicans say the portrait was removed following renewed attention to Mitchell's reported ties to Jeffrey Epstein. In 2020, an inquiry was made about more portraits of women being displayed in the State House. Mitchell's portrait will be replaced with a portrait of Gail Laughlin, credited as being the first woman to practice law in the state of Maine. The state legislature's Government Oversight Committee continues to grapple with how to respond to requests from Republican state senators Jeffrey Timberlake, Brad Farron, and Stacey Guerin to have an OPEGA review of multiple issues related to DHHS, MaineCare, and whether the MaineCare Integrity Unit is up to the task of monitoring the program. The question of case management when it comes to child protection in Maine was a reason for additional DHHS oversight. Committee Chair Craig Hickman explained how oversight for such a department in general is challenging.
Because that agency is huge, and it's got a huge budget, and no one committee can do thorough legislative oversight of all of the functions of that department. And I would say we can't either. Between the HHS committee and the GOC committee, we can't together do thorough oversight of that agency, which is why there have been proposals to break the department up, proposals to add inspectors generals to the department so that there can be real-time evaluation and analysis and correction, course correction in what happens in the Department of Health and Human Services, because it's a behemoth.
Federal and state representatives convened to discuss upcoming elections. State officials say the conversation left them feeling concerned about state sovereignty. Alexa Kennedy has those details.
Wednesday, federal authorities from the Election Assistance Commission, FBI, DHS, and the DOJ convened on a routine call with state representatives from across the country to discuss the safety of the upcoming elections. On that call, Secretary of State Shenna Bellows asked whether the federal government would acknowledge that the states, not the feds, are in charge of elections. Bellows says in response, federal authorities would only say they don't plan to deploy ICE to polling locations arbitrarily. That response left state representatives questioning the federal government's intentions.
The founders of our Constitution understood that the best safeguard from tyranny was to place this in the states and local election officials' hands. It is concerning that they can't acknowledge that Article 1 of the Constitution places the states, not the federal government, in charge of elections.
Bellows says representatives are concerned that voters might be intimidated and refrain from showing up to vote should ICE be deployed to certain cities and states on Election Day. When asked to comment on state sovereignty over elections, DHS sent us the following statement, quote, ICE is not planning operations targeting polling locations. ICE conducts intelligence-driven targeted enforcement, and if an active public safety threat endangered a polling location, they may be arrested as a result of that targeted enforcement action.
I walked away with some deep concerns that the federal government is not following the Constitution and that they are signaling that they do want to control the elections in 2026. We won't let them.
In Augusta, Alexa Kennedy, ABC 7 and Fox 22 News.
Still to come, sights and sounds from the Belfast Ice Festival, your full 5-day forecast, and later on, join Jack Webb, Max Sturm, and I for a state championship edition of Fast Break. We'll be right back.
Dreaming of a new garage or custom build? Patriot Landscaping and Construction delivers from frame to finish. Expert craftsmanship, durable designs, and quality you can trust, we get it done right. Call Patriot Landscaping and Construction today. Let's build your future together.
Welcome to Stowaway's Town Tavern in Bucksport, where every meal's a hearty feast that feels like a family gathering. Stowaway serves generous portions of classic home-style dishes that are sure to satisfy. Complement your meal with your favorite drink from Ugly's Tap Room, Stowaway's full-service bar. Come as our guest, leave as our friend at Stowaway's Town Tavern in Bucksport. Open every day for lunch, dinner, and snacks in between.
A little winter weather never stopped Old George or Toyota from offering incredible savings to celebrate his birthday on vehicles from the longest-lasting brand at the Toyota Washington's Birthday Savings Event. You could save up to $6,200 with 2.99 for 72 on most 2026 Tundra models. Plus, get $1,000 bonus financing cash. Come get your savings in honor of Old George at your New England Toyota dealer, your all-wheel drive headquarters. Toyota, let's go places.
Roto-Rooter has served the greater Bangor area and beyond for 35 years, offering plumbing, hydrojetting, snaking, descaling, video inspection, and grease interceptor cleaning services. For all your residential and commercial clogs, call Roto-Rooter today, 990-1234.
And away go troubles down the drain. Roto-Rooter.
A sharp pain in his chest. He knew it was his heart, but 2 hours from the big city hospital could tragically mean the end. But it wasn't. Thanks to Senator Susan Collins' tireless fight for Maine's rural hospitals. Because of Senator Collins' work, his local hospital had recently received up-to-date diagnostic equipment and upgraded facilities, all paid for with new federal funding. Lives are being saved. Call and thank our Senator Susan Collins for delivering this lifeline for Maine.
Dreaming of a new garage or custom build? Patriot Landscaping and Construction delivers from frame to finish. Expert craftsmanship, durable designs, and quality you can trust, we get it done right. Call Patriot Landscaping and Construction today. Let's build your future together.
Welcome back. Belfast's coolest tradition has returned. Callie Warren has the story.
Well, there's no doubt that it's still pretty cold outside, but folks in Belfast have found a way to make the ice pretty nice. The Belfast Ice Festival kicked off Friday, and locals and visitors alike say it's a great way to warm up from the winter blues.
We actually live in Portland. Decided to make a little weekend trip of it and see what all the ice is all about. It's a beautiful night. The fires are ripping, the ice bars are out.
With 24 handcrafted ice sculptures to explore scattered around downtown Belfast and many more events, itineraries for getting the most out of the weekend can be packed. But you can always trust local kids to tell you the can't-miss sculptures.
My favorite is probably going to have to be maybe the baby bear.
It's the doggy right next to the pizza shop.
For small businesses and local restaurants, the event brings some much appreciated foot traffic to Belfast in the off-season.
And, for the wintertime, when in the slow season, we get our locals come back out, and then they get to come out and enjoy the festivities as well as the tourists and all the other patrons as well.
The Belfast Ice Festival will be going on until Sunday with plenty to enjoy. More information is available on our website. I'm Callie Warren reporting for ABC 7 and Fox 22 News.
All right, folks, after the break, Chase Ropenack will have your full 5-day forecast. We'll be right back.
Last season, IndyCar champ Alex Palou rewrote the history books.
Can anyone catch it?
So what's next?
I wish to present the importance of hard work and determination, of not backing down when things are tough, of being there to help a friend. Because it is only when we work together that we achieve true greatness.
With a 100% U.S.-based workforce and a 100% U.S.-built fiber broadband network, Spectrum is America's connectivity company.
I'm Jim with Lowry Law. A husband and wife called me after they were hit by a drunk driver. We got them a $400,000 settlement they were able to use for their retirement. Call me. I'm your go-to guy.
Hi, I'm Tony Hafford from TC Hafford Basement Systems, the all things basement-y company. Basement waterproofing, basement structural repair, humidity and mold control, and nasty crawl spaces too. Since 1991, over 15,000 Maine homeowners have trusted TC Hafford Basement Systems to fix their basements. Call TC Hafford Basement Systems today for all things basement-y.
A little winter weather never stopped old George, or Toyota from offering incredible savings to celebrate his birthday on vehicles from the longest-lasting brand at the Toyota Washington's Birthday Savings Event. You could get a $269 a month lease on an all-wheel drive Corolla Cross SUV with a total contract cost of $15,020. Plus, get 2 years no-cost maintenance. Come get your savings in honor of old George at your New England Toyota dealer, your all-wheel drive headquarters. Toyota, let's go places.
When Blazing Trails located in Lincoln want to know the local forecast, they log on to foxbangor.com. Blazing Trails is Lincoln's #1 trusted dispensary, providing outstanding product and customer service to Eastern and Central Maine.
Hank's Husqvarna is your trusted full-line Husqvarna dealer, offering you everything you need for your outdoor projects. From high-performance lawn tractors and zero-turn mowers to chainsaws, trimmers, battery-powered and powerful snowblowers, we have just what you need. Every piece of equipment is fully set up, serviced, and ready for use by our certified Husqvarna technician. And all sales are backed by our in-house Husqvarna warranty. For parts, service, or new equipment sales, make your way to Hank's Husqvarna in Carmel or Newport.
You are watching WFVX, Fox 22, Bangor.
Thank you very much. You can see temperatures increased a lot for today, back into the low to mid 40s here across the state. 42 here in town. You saw 41 in Bar Harbor. Some mid 40s reaching down into Sanford area. 46 for you today, and even saw mid 40s up all the way into Presque Isle this afternoon as well, with our fair share of rain and snow this afternoon after a cold front came through. And you can see the cold temperatures returning up north for tonight, where your lows will be hanging out in the single digits, but we'll be better off here in the Bangor region, especially along your coastline as well, while our lows will be hanging around the low to mid 20s for tonight. But temperatures barely increase for tomorrow, but this model is catching on to a little bit more cloud cover tomorrow. I believe in the afternoon we're going to get some sunshine, and that should boost our temperatures into the mid 20s for tomorrow. We're forecasting at 26, but yes, temperatures still going to stay very cold up north, where you can see highs in the upper single digits and low teens for tomorrow. So average high right around the mid 30s. We're not going to do that for tomorrow, neither on Monday as well, but those temperatures do get back in your average for your Tuesday and back above Wednesday, and you can see a more spring-like pattern is on the way as we head into the portions of the midweek. Wednesday and the Thursday hanging around the low 40s, upper 30s, a dip in temperatures Friday today after a front passes through, but right back near 40 going into next weekend on Saturday. So that's going to bring plenty of chances for rain and snow heading into next week, as well as many multiple low pressure systems are going to begin to pass by. But for tomorrow, a little bit of wind will return after we saw some gusty winds out there for today. It'll just be from the north for tomorrow afternoon, looking at gusts near 20 to 25 miles per hour, and then those winds will subside heading down for your Sunday night into your Monday morning. So here we are out there for tonight. So some clouds out there. The cold front has now passed, but we will still see a chance for some lingering snow and flurries heading into the very early morning hours. Not going to dump a whole lot of snow, of course, just some trace amounts as you see passing by the central and northern portions of the state, and then mainly hanging around our coastal regions for tomorrow afternoon for your central and eastern coastline specifically, while we have some more sunshine begin to make its way into the Bangor region. Here's that model keeping clouds over the Bangor region, but I do think we'll boost our temperatures into the mid-20s if we get that sunshine for tomorrow, especially before we head down into the sunset time of the day, right? So here we are into your Monday. High pressure really fills in. Going to be cooler with highs in the low 20s, back below average, but still plenty of sunshine and lighter winds out there. So for tonight, lows near 20 degrees, plenty of clouds out there with some light snow and flurries possible towards the very early morning hours, and that will continue throughout the afternoon. Light snow and flurries mainly for the coastal regions, but then we'll get those partly cloudy skies, a little bit of sunshine to help boost our temperatures to 26 for tomorrow with some breezy winds from the north. So here's a look at our extended forecast. A bit cooler on Monday with the sunshine, highs in the low 20s, but back into the low to mid 30s for your Tuesday. Still some cloudy skies. We got chances for snow coming Tuesday night, drying out by Wednesday. We can see the same thing Wednesday night. More chances for snow, but temperatures back above freezing in the upper 30s for Thursday, prompting that chance for some rain and snow showers in the afternoon.
Thank you, Chase, for that report. Folks, it was state championship Saturday for the Maine High School basketball tournament. After the break, join Jack Webb, Max Sturm, and I as we bring you highlights and analysis from each game played today. We'll be right back.
Tired of worrying whether your credit will hold you back from getting a car? At Down East Credit Union, we believe everyone deserves reliable transportation, even with less than perfect credit. Let us guide you every step of the way. If your credit score is under 670 or you've had setbacks like bankruptcy or repossession, that doesn't mean you're out of options. We'll help you get pre-approved, guide you through car shopping, and work with you on a plan to rebuild your credit. Reach out to Down East Credit Union today. Let's get you on the road confidently.
Brandywine Graphics makes it easy. We are the top source for screen printing, embroidery, branded merchandise, and direct-to-garment printing. With decades of experience, state-of-the-art equipment, and a commitment to excellence, why trust your apparel products with anyone else? And now, Brandywine Graphics can easily launch online stores for your school or organization. Simply design your products from brands like Eddie Bauer, Carhartt, and more. Share the link and we'll do the rest. Like we said, Brandywine Graphics makes it easy. Find out more at brandywinegraphics.com or at our Hamden location.
You heard it was a hit. You heard it was a smash. A wonder. A phenomenon. An international sensation. But you haven't heard them.
March 16 at the Cross Insurance Center. Get your tickets today.
At Maine's #1 Kia dealer, Darlings Kia, you can't miss in 2026. Drive a brand new all-wheel drive Sportage for only $299 a month, or buy a new Kia SUV for under $20,000. Plus, every new Kia comes with our 10-year or 100,000-mile warranty. The best in the business. You can't miss this and more at Darlings Kia. The best cars, the best prices, and the best warranty. You'll do better at Darlings.
The NASCAR Cup Series pulls into the road course at Cook. Coverage begins Sunday at 2:30 Eastern on Fox.
This is Friday Night Fast Break Tournament Edition. Brought to you by Dorsey Furniture and Coastal Auto Parts, your local Napa Auto Parts dealer.
Welcome to Fast Break, presented by Coastal Auto Parts and Dorsey Furniture. It's our final Fast Break of the season. Cannot believe it's already here. I'm Jack Webb. That's Doug Banks. Max Sturm standing by down in Augusta. Blink, and you really do miss it, Doug.
No, absolutely. I remember we were talking about back in January about the games that we're talking about now, and now we're finally, blink and you miss it. We're already here. It's cultivated into these games.
And it happens so quick because in December you're kind of like, okay, we're feeling these teams out, and then the Christmas break comes. You come back and it's kind of a sprint to the finish, and here we are at the finish line, and we might as well waste no more time. Our Max Sturm joins us live at the Augusta Civic Center, which saw 3/5 of the state championship action this weekend. Max, how you doing, brother?
Jack, doing great, and I mean, my goodness, what an end to the state title games we just had here. I'm going to tease you guys and not get into it yet. That will come later on. We had Class S, Class D, and Class C boys and girls take on each other in the state title games down here in Augusta today. So let's waste no more time and get into the action. Starting off with our first game of the day is Class S girls slate between North Champion Wisdom and South Champion Valley. Getting things started early were the Cavaliers. Here is Delia Hill in the corner. Contested three. It's up. It's good. Valley up early. They get right back to it. This time, Liana Hartwell sends a laser of a pass to Riley Clark under the net, and it's as easy as that. Add two more. Pioneers get going offensively when Ava Lerman handles up top, sidesteps, launches, and knocks down a big three-pointer. Second quarter, Valley up big. Kristen Bigelow is off the mark on the reverse, but she's there to clean it up is Miranda Bean, and she puts it off the glass and in, and then they drive again. This time it's blocked by Peyton Roy. Great help side defense. But in the next possession, Hartwell once again rips a three. She's got it. She pulls out the bow and arrow, and Valley has it well in hand. Finally, in the fourth quarter, Hartwell with an impressive bucket through traffic, and Valley goes on to win their second straight state championship, 48-30.
It's great. I mean, winning last year was awesome. First big ball in girls history, then coming back out here to do it for our community and for us, it's great. I love it.
Next up, the Class S boys. It's the Valley boys taking on Mason Pelletier and the Easton Bears, opening up in the first. Valley's Harry Lewis shoots one down court to Levi Short. He misses the layup, but fear not, his guy Colin Nichols comes in and finishes the job. Then it'll be Lewis on another feed, this time to Fisher Tewksbury, who puts it up off the glass and in for two more. Bears down big, need to get it going, and they do as Raiden Cochran knocks down this three-pointer to keep Easton in the game. End of the first, Nichols repays the favor to Lewis for the play earlier and drains this corner tray. Now closing in on the end of the half, Mason Pelletier trying to close the gap. Deep two-pointer, his foot's on the line. He still knocks it down regardless. Pelletier opens the second half for the Bears with a tough take to the net for 2 points. But this sweet shot from Levi Short late in the quarter extends the lead to 20, and the Cavaliers would hold on to win their first state title in 10 years by a score of 77-46.
It's a surreal feeling, honestly. I love this team. It's been a long 5 years, and to come out with that gold ball, it's awesome.
Let's go ahead and change up the classes. Now over to Class C and the Mattinock girls taking on the Spruce Mountain Phoenix. How about we start with the Lynx and Addison Sear. She receives the feed under the net, and she's going to put it up through a tough contact for the bucket in the game's first points. Then after being held scoreless for most of the first quarter, the Phoenix start a comeback from down 10 with this quick jumper from Aisla Armendi. The Lynx keep it scoring, though, and once again, it's Sear, this time recovering the missed basket and laying it up and in for two. The Phoenix go to the half with just a 4-point deficit thanks to this steal and score from Armandi. She's going the other way, and it's too easy for the basket. Third quarter tight game. Phoenix pass goes out to Natasha McDonald. Corner three, up and good. The very next play, Megan House gets her chance in the corner. Cash money, back and forth we go. But Sear closes it out with this fast break score, and the Lady Lynx go on to win their very first Class C state title, 54-40.
Obviously, when you work so hard for something all year, and then you finally get to that point, it's so unreal. I feel like I'm about to wake up from a dream any moment now.
Our last game of the night, Class C boys state title, Fort Kent taking on the Marana Cook Black Bears. Black Bears are the first on the board. Great ball movement eventually gives Gage Matson a great shot under the net, and it's 2-0 Marana Cook. Now, guys, there wasn't any precipitation in the forecast, but it started to rain. Morneau goes nuclear. He hits his first three-pointer to put the Warriors on the board. Right back to him the next play. Corner three up and good. And the storm is not over yet. One more Morneau in the corner. Unreal. Aiden Jeffers closes the first quarter with one of his own. This one from the wing, it goes 20-0 run for the Warriors, but second quarter, Matson dodges and weaves his way through traffic for another bucket, and the Black Bears start their own run. But the three was just falling for the Warriors this time, and it goes out to Mason Pelletier. He drills it. Marana Cook, Jack Fontaine, deep three, and that sends us to the half. But that one, what a game that we had here. And after that first half, I was really thinking that Fort Kent had this in the bag. Again, they have a 20-0 run after the first point scored by Marana Cook. But then in that second quarter, they started hitting shots with Jack Fontaine and Matson, and they just got it going. And at halftime, it was a 10-point deficit, down from 18. And then it just got closer and closer. Fourth quarter, we got extremely close. It got down to a 2-point deficit for Marana Cook. But Aiden Jeffers and that Warriors team just found a way to stay resilient and keep themselves ahead. Foul shots came up big at the end from Jeffers, being one of the guys that primarily took those foul shots. And they go on to win their very first ever Class C state title. 2 brand new Class C state champions this year, which is just awesome. And they were celebrating all behind me. They still are. They got all their families down there. They just got done with post-game interviews, all on TV. This is a big moment for them. I just talked with Aiden Jeffers' pre-K teacher, and she was saying that he's always had a knack for basketball. And man, we've seen it throughout the tournament that he really has it. He has that it factor. It's something so special, and for him to be a junior and still have one more year, he's looking to go back-to-back. And with the way that this Fort Kent team fought this year, I absolutely believe that can happen. Now, I just want to reflect this year on Fast Break. I just want to say, guys, it has been a pleasure to do Fast Break for you. Very sad this is the last one, but at the same time, I'm excited to go home. It's been a very long 2 weeks. I'm going to toss it back to you guys because I know you guys got some good games.
Thank you, Max. He's acting like we got him held captive. I'm excited to go home. Max, no, we're just kidding, man. We appreciate all of your hard work. He has absolutely killed it. Mm-hmm. And you can just tell he's so much more comfortable on camera in the passion he has. He's really found a way to capture that and do it well.
Yes, and he's only going to get better, too. I'm looking forward to what it's going to be like next year.
And I loved how he pointed out that Fort Kent squad, they're still celebrating right now. First in school history. That is a beautiful thing. We got more state championship basketball action ahead. Who won in Class A and D? Find out next.
Keep your next building project on track when you plan ahead with help from Hammond Lumber Company. Hammond's Home Planning Center specialists offer professional plans with customizable 3D renderings available to bring your project to life. Once your design is finalized and approved, you'll receive a full materials list. And when you buy all your materials from them, Hammond will refund your design fees. Get your building project off to the right start when you bring your vision to Hammond Lumber Company.
Why should your new floor come from Carpet One? Because we're passionate about the spaces our neighbors call home. We're part of your community, and we're also part of the world's largest cooperative of independently owned and operated flooring stores.